Yo, what is good, everybody? Welcome into the Free Money Podcast here, coming to you live with round 2 of the Stanley Cup Playoffs 2023, as Game 1 starts here tonight on Tuesday of the Florida and Toronto series. Should be a good one there, and then the Kraken and the Stars. But first, let's recap the plays from the first round. We'll start Kyle Connor and Jack Eichel. Head-to-head points. Kyle Connor ended up with 4, and Jack Eichel ended up with 5. So one off there. Had an early lead, Kyle Connor, but Jack Eichel outplayed him late and helped the Knights advance to the next round with the series win 4-1. Adam Fox, head-to-head versus Dougie Hamilton. Adam Fox minus 115. Blew Dougie Hamilton out of the water. Was never really close. Adam Fox had 4 assists in a game, and it's never close in that department. So that one was a good winner for us. And unfortunately, we lost the series price for the Rangers, plus 105. They just looked very uninspired and no sense of urgency in Game 7 as they got shut out for the second time against Akira Schmid and the New Jersey Devils. So that was a loser, and then followed up with Tampa Bay Lightning series price, plus 130. Toronto did it. Tampa Bay gave up too many big leads, should have won some games there and likely won the series, but that is why they play the games. And they ended up being bounced by Toronto. Then 2 plays in the Seattle series. Seattle series spread plus 1.5, minus 110. And Seattle series price plus 230. So great plays there. That helped out a lot and helped eat up some of those losses. Seattle really brought it to Colorado. They played a great series and one that I don't think many Colorado Avalanche fans thought that they were going to have to struggle with, but they did. And they now face Dallas Stars in the next round. 2 plays in the Edmonton series. Zach Hyman, 3 goals, plus 138. They ended up taking away his 3rd in Game 5. Unfortunate, as that would have been a nice winner. And the Edmonton-LA over total goals, 37.5, was another winner as well. Those 2 teams played quick, and I expect something similar in the next series. And the last one, New York Rangers series price, plus 165, minus 1 unit for us on that one. Islanders had far too many penalties, and the way that Game 6 lost went right in off of Sorokin, off of the goal line from Stasny. Brutal. So after the first round, we now sit at negative 0.12 units, and we're going to get into the second round here for these playoffs. So we're going to start with Florida and Toronto. Florida battled their tails off to win the series after being down 3-1, and many people are saying one of the biggest collapse in sports from the Boston Bruins, but the Panthers definitely deserve to be here. They won 3 of their games on the road and dethroned the best regular season team ever. Matthew Tkachuk was the perfect trade for this team. He just provides grit and kind of strength and the physicality that you need in the playoffs because of how different the style is compared to the regular season. And that's something that you want as a fan also when your team goes out and tries to address a need and goes for it all. I'm sure it was tough losing Huberdeau, but you get Matthew Tkachuk on the other end, and he clearly has helped beat a team that not many people thought that you could beat. On the other side, John Tavares put the Maple Leafs to the second round for the first time since 2004, and they did great on just zeroing in on shutting down that Tampa Bay top line and let the second and third line beat you. So Chiarelli, Nicholas Paul, not a lot of the big dogs, Kucherov, Stamkos didn't do as well as I think many people thought they would, including themselves, but they clearly zeroed in on what they needed to do and shut down their top line. Ilya Samsonov played great for this team and has played twice against Florida this season, going 1-1. Now, an advantage for Florida, I think, in this series is head coach. Head coach Paul Maurice did a great job in coaching versus Boston, and I think has the advantage here as well, whether it was just the line management, moving the lines around, sending out the fourth versus the first for Boston, kind of shutting down those older centers. And I'm interested to see how the goalie situation gets played out here. Bobrovsky was great and was a great veteran presence that they needed. But Lyon may get looked at to start this series just based on how it kind of started out for the Panthers. And if they can get anything different than that, they'll be in a way better position than they were down 3-1. Florida was phenomenal on the forecheck and will give Toronto problems. Carter Verhaeghe, Tkachuk, those guys will definitely give Toronto problems as they're not as physical, even really as Boston was. They don't really have that forecheck pressure to get them off. And Boston also shut down their defensemen. They were really quiet. Hampus Lindholm, Charlie McAvoy, the top two defensemen for Boston, didn't play that great. Dmitry Orlov is really the one that chipped in. So Toronto's going to have to fight through that as well. Morgan Riley is their top one, so I think Florida will make sure to try to shut him down. And it's going to have to be some of the other guys stepping up for Toronto and helping out, because I would say they just have less skilled defensemen than Boston did. So something to monitor for sure. Matthew Tkachuk led the team in scoring, but Brandon Montour had an incredible series of 5 goals and 3 assists. And like I mentioned earlier, Toronto did a good job of shutting down that first line. I think Toronto will likely employ a similar strategy that they did against Tampa Bay Lightning. Shut down that top line, Tkachuk, Carter Verhaeghe, and make Reinhart, Sam Bennett, the kind of second and third line centers beat you, and hope that you can replicate the same success. But there's also that D line to mention. Aaron Ekblad, a great defender, and Brandon Montour had a great series and has played really well against Toronto in the regular season. 2 goals and 3 assists in the 4 games. Now, Toronto does have that weight lifted off their shoulder for sure, but Toronto has problems that they need to avoid versus Florida. I would say that Sheldon Keefe is newer to his job against Paul Maurice, a team or a guy that knows what it takes to get a little bit further in the playoffs and face the grind. And Keefe hasn't won a playoff series, so now he must do it a little different because he knows that styles make fights for sure. The speed combo and physical play for Florida will definitely wreak havoc on Toronto. I don't think that they have as good a forecheck, or that Tampa Bay had as good a forecheck as Florida does. Toronto has depth in their favor. That team is deep for sure. Matthew Nye is a kid from college in Minnesota, made the team, so it just shows really how deep they are. And Riley has played incredible and stuffed the stat sheet in the first series. They also have a couple wild cards. Michael Bunting is a bit of a hothead and could cause a little bit of trouble for Toronto and cause harm that he doesn't really need to, as he got suspended for a couple games last series. And Mitch Marner, a real standout for Toronto in that first round, leads the NHL in plus-minus, along with assists in the playoffs so far. And Florida does what they need for the playoffs. They just get shots on goal. They had 6 players with 15-plus shots on goal. Toronto had 4. That's kind of what these playoffs are now. You just get the dirty goals, get pucks on net, and physical is kind of the new Florida brand of hockey. They got Matthew Tkachuk and Radko Gudas, who can be key here. And this is Florida's series to pounce, and I think what they made this trade for and now want after that comeback, because not many people, really nobody thought that they could do it, as everybody had sweeps and in 5 and all this garbage. So Florida definitely brought it to them, and I think that they can do the same here against Toronto. Toronto also got their series win, but needed 2 big first-period comebacks, being down 2-0 and 3-0 in the first period. Not really a strategy for success, and I think a team like Florida that has a more kind of fast-paced forecheck doesn't really allow that. And I think that Florida can and will win this series against Toronto. Florida now has the momentum and built for this. So I have 2 plays here for this series. Florida Panthers plus 152 series price over on the Barstool Sportsbook. And then on FanDuel, we're going to go half unit on this one. Brandon Montour, 3+ goals, plus 460. I think those 2 really have a very good chance of hitting. Montour played well last series with 8 points and had 5 points in 4 regular season games versus the Maple Leafs. And there's one more series starting tonight on Tuesday, Seattle and the Dallas Stars. Seattle with the series upset of Colorado and now head to Dallas with a lot of confidence. Dallas dispatched Minnesota in 6, and Jake Ottinger, the Otter, played very well, allowing 13 goals and 2.01 goals against average. But shout at us, we did call the Seattle upset. I think they were undervalued and a team that gave problems to Colorado. Now, Dallas plays a little bit different than Colorado, so this is for sure going to be a little bit of a different matchup for Seattle. They faced each other 3 times in the span of 10 days, with Dallas winning 2 out of the 3. And these games were very high scoring, with the Kraken having 3 different goalies start in those games: Dackord, Grubauer, and Martin Jones. And look for totals here on a game-by-game basis. Not sure if the total goals in the series is worth it, because I think this one ends a little bit sooner than the last series for Seattle. But Seattle's key to success was the first period, as they've been doing it all year. And in the series, they scored 5 out of the 7 games in the first period. Their calling card for success. They attack you with depth. All 4 lines are strong. Daniel Sprong is on the 4th line, probably a guy that should even be a second liner. So just to show they have depth from top to bottom in the forwards and the defensemen. And there was only 2 players that did not register points in the series. So it is a team effort. Everybody gets involved on the Kraken. And their goaltending played extremely well. But I don't think that they can replicate that success against a team filled with veterans and young emerging stars like Jason Robertson and Rube Hintz. And the Stars can score at will and play far more physical than Seattle. That Dallas-Minnesota series I thought was a little difficult to gauge because they both played physical hockey. And at that point, it just comes down to who has the better goalie, which ended up being Dallas. And Jake Ottinger really was the difference there. And styles make fights, and I think that Seattle may just be outmatched here. A lot of these guys haven't had much postseason experience, so now getting to the second round is a little bit different against a team filled with guys that have. Peter DeBoer, the coach of Dallas, has yet to win a Stanley Cup Finals, but this team has a real chance in his first season as the Dallas head coach. He has made it twice and is now looking for a third, and I think it's going to be another coaching disadvantage here against Seattle. Dave Hextall. DeBoer's the better coach, has the better team, the better goalie. Everything points in his favor here, and Ottinger is playing well, and in the playoffs, you generally need your best player to be your goalie, which I think Ottinger has now reached that level. The Stars shut down Kirill Kaprizov for the Wild last series, and I think that they can do that again just with the physical play. It may be hard to decipher who that may be for Seattle, but that's probably going to have to be Yanni Gourde or Jaden Schwartz, the 2 top point getters for Seattle last series. And it's just going to be a difference maker how physical they are. Dallas has a lot in their favor. Coaching experience, the better goalie, more skilled players, the far more physical team, and playoff veterans. I think Seattle has extremely exceeded expectations, and I give them credit because they likely thought they were going to win the series against Colorado, but now I think they know they face a little more daunting task regardless of how the seeds came out, and I just think they're outmatched. So 2 plays here I have for this series, both on FanDuel. Dallas -1.5 series spread plus 116, and Dallas -2.5 series spread plus 245. Unfortunately for Seattle, they just run into a better team after a great series against Colorado. And now for the second series in the West, Vegas Golden Knights and Edmonton Oilers. And the goals are going to be aplenty in this one, just like they were last series for Edmonton against the Kings. In their 4 games this year, 7, 7, 7, and 11. For the Oilers, the whole team chipped in this series, led by Leon Draisaitl with 11 points. McDavid, relatively quiet with the goals for him, which is funny to say, and he had 3, and that's still considered low, but still had an impact with 10 points. The kid played incredible, and Stuart Skinner did let in a lot, but got the job done when it mattered. and has much similar goals against average versus Las Vegas. 3.59 versus Vegas. 2 wins, no losses in regulation, and 1 overtime loss that he did the LA Kings 3.43. And McDavid had 7 points in the regular season versus the Knights, but these goals props on FanDuel are wild. So I didn't really find one that I thought had much value. And a possible breakout candidate, if you guys are looking at one, Nick Bjugstad had 2 goals last series, and I think is just a breakout candidate and maybe worth a sprinkle at 3+ goals at plus 600. He's just kind of a bigger presence in net, and that kind of gives Brassard and these defensemen trouble. The defensemen aren't as physical for the Kings like Drew Doughty. They're more of the finesse players like Pietrangelo and Shea Theodore. So a little bit different style. So one to keep an eye on for sure. And the Oilers may continue to use 11 forwards and could be a candidate for more ice time if they decide to go that way and cut out the 12th forward and go to 7 defensemen. But for Vegas, Chandler Stevenson and Mark Stone were leaders in the locker room for Vegas with 8 points each. And Brassard played really well against Edmonton in his one start and showed up late in a 7-4 loss for Vegas, but had a great series versus Winnipeg, 2.42 goals against average, and 4-1 series win. But that was with some injuries for Winnipeg. No Scheifele, no Morrissey, so a little bit man down. Played well. Now he's going to face a vamped Edmonton team that is now kind of hitting their stride, which is why I think goals are going to be scored almost every 10 minutes here in this series. So going to be something for sure to watch. And both teams are about the same in terms of penalty minutes, so no real advantage there. But the Oilers do have the best power play percentage in the playoffs, 56.3. The Knights, on the other end, a lowly 18.8. And neither one of them are really good at penalty kill here in the playoffs. Vegas, 58.3 penalty kill percentage. Edmonton, 66.7. Both the bottom 5. And the Oilers' last opponent, the LA Kings, were last at 43.8. And we are going to see why the Oilers can light the lamp at a crazy pace on that power play. But the Oilers are led by McDavid and Draisaitl, and I think this is the Oilers series. But with all the offensive firepower on both ends, it's a little bit unpredictable. Mark Stone played great last series, and the goalie for Edmonton, Stuart Skinner, isn't world class. But this Edmonton power play is too dangerous to back Vegas here. You can be put down 2-0 relatively early. And Leon Draisaitl led the team and series in goals with 7. No one else really close. And Stone had 3 goals against the Jets in their series. And in 2 of the last 4 Vegas Knights series, he has gotten to that number of 3. I think the series goes 6 or 7 to give him a chance to get to 3 goals. So I have 3 plays for this series, 2 player props. Number 1, Mark Stone, 3 goals, minus 125 on FanDuel. I think he can really reach that against a team that has high-scoring games in Edmonton. And then Leon Draisaitl, most goals in the series, plus 350 on DraftKings. He had 7 last series, and they're going to have, I think, a good amount of power play opportunities to get him that number. He was averaging about 2 points a game in the Kings series, and I think that he can do the same here right now against Vegas. And then lastly, Old Faithful here on this one. A better line for us this time. Vegas and Edmonton, total goals in the series over 38.5, minus 110 on DraftKings. It's too good to pass up here, so we're going to rock with the over and 3 plays for the Edmonton and Vegas Knights series. And now for the final playoff series in the East. Carolina Hurricanes take on the New Jersey Devils, and one that I was quite wrong on, unfortunately. The Rangers just played very uninspired, but all credit goes to the Devils. Started the series down 2-0 and came back winning 4 out of 5. And Schmid made this team incredible. The goalie change was what they needed, and with his play, the offense woke up with him, and Erik Haula came out of nowhere to tally 6 points and 4 goals. And both these teams play pretty quick and have a lot of speed, and youthfulness is definitely on their side. The Isles gave the Hurricanes trouble at times, but got aided by their mistakes and scored on the power play a lot, hitting at 20% and 5 power play goals in that series in a relatively low scoring series. So those were useful for sure. The Hurricanes had a goalie switch of their own in Antti Ranta playing games 1 through 5, and then Frederik Andersen playing the closeout game 6, only allowing 1 goal in an overtime win. But Ranta played against them once this season, the Devils, and Peter Kochetkov getting 3 starts. So going to be interesting to see how that gets managed, who gets the start, and how Rod Brindamore takes a look at that. In the regular season, they split the series 2-2, the Devils scoring 13 and the Hurricanes scoring 12. This Devils team now reminds me a lot of the Rangers team from last year. A young team putting it all together a year ahead of schedule. I think this Devils team definitely was supposed to be where the Rangers are now, but that is not the case as they look to complete this series win and move on to the Eastern Conference Finals. And I think that something similar will happen here. I think the Hurricanes the Devils will take care of the Hurricanes here in 6 games. And I think they win the series for sure. You can get that series price at -124 on FanDuel. And then one more series player prop we have, Jesper Bratt versus Martin Necas. Bratt had 4 points versus the Rangers, and that was after a slow first 2 games that he had there along with the team. But in the 4 games versus Carolina, 4 goals and 2 assists to total 6. And in the game against Antti Ranta, 2 goals and an assist. So hopefully he starts and Bratt can get to him. And Martin Necas had 3 points in 6 games versus the Islanders and did not have that many, only had 2 against the Devils in the regular season. So I think that's one that we're going to focus on as well. Kind of a quick rundown on this one. Not much to really provide other than I think the Devils are the better team here and are on a similar archetype to the Rangers from last season. So that will be the final play from the Devils and Hurricanes series. So to recap, the Florida-Toronto series, Florida Panthers series price on Barstool +152, and Brandon Montour 3 goals at +460 over on FanDuel 4.5 unit. Series number 2 in the West, Seattle and Dallas. I have 2 here. The series spread I think is going to be one to take a look at, especially with the value on it. These are both on FanDuel. Dallas -1.5 series spread +116, and Dallas -2.5 series spread +245. I think Seattle is severely outmatched here, even after a great series against Colorado. And then the Edmonton Oilers and Vegas Knights series. 3 plays for this one. Mark Stone, 3+ goals, -125 on FanDuel. And then Leon Draisaitl, most goals in the series, +350 on DraftKings. And then back to Old Faithful and the over total goals in the series of 38.5, -110 on DraftKings. And then to finish up, have 2 in the New Jersey Devils series along with Carolina Hurricanes. The Devils series price -124 on FanDuel, and Jesper Bratt versus Martin Necas. Most points, we're taking Bratt -115. So appreciate it as always. Ended up round 1 -0.12 units, so no damage done there. Shout out the Seattle Kraken for saving us with that series price at +230. So appreciate it as always. Thank y'all for listening. Follow me at the RJ Larson on Twitter and Free Money Show on YouTube. See y'all next time.